What's up, YouTube? Mr. LMSC here, and today we're going to be going over the survey results. I know some of you guys were eager to see them. Some people were upset they couldn't immediately see them afterwards, but I try and keep the results hidden because I don't want it to influence people, right? I don't want people to see it and go, oh, everybody else thinks this is overpowered, so maybe I should as well, or something like that. Which is why I also tried to not give my thoughts on every single skill as we went in. That being said, Pez Radar did reveal the answers to the last question. Per usual, he ruined that, but that's just kind of his MO. You know, that's just how it goes. So with that being said, let's jump into the D2R 2.4 feedback survey. We won't be reading every single result as there is a lot of text fields, but we'll try and get everything there when we can. So, first, what is your experience with Diablo 2? 36 people never played. Surprisingly, it looks like a lot of people have at least 1,000 hours or more right here. So that is nice. We have a lot of experience. And I think that's just true for a lot of people that play Diablo 2. And then for D2R, it looks like between 100 and 1,000 hours seems to be the most common response. I don't think you can have over 5,000 hours of D2R. So I'm not sure about those 87. Filter those out, right? But I probably fall into this category. But yeah, so we have a decent amount right there. So regardless, live experience. How much time have you spent on 2.4? So we have never played, 25%. And I know some of you guys are going to say 25% never played. They should all be removed from the survey and shouldn't have any say whatsoever. But I disagree, because I think you can actually get a lot of value by just looking and watching streams. You know, these people could have watched 300 hours of people playing, things like that. So, you know, I think that's totally fine. Less than 5 hours, we have 867, so 27% right there. And then between 5 and 10, between 10 and 20, and more than 20 hours right here. So we do have a broad mix. I mean, I'm sure there's many people that popped on, played their favorite characters a couple times, and then we're good with it, you know? So regardless, good to note that. Now, how does each of these rebalance skills feel to you? And this is where we're going to go through each and every one of those rebalance skills and just discuss, how the community is kind of feeling. Impale, it looks like still very underpowered and slightly underpowered are the main determinants there. Fend seems like people are pretty satisfied, maybe slightly underpowered, but still feeling good. Poison Javelin, also slightly empowered to feels good. Plague Javelin actually has a majority in the feels good category, with some entering into the very overpowered and slightly overpowered. I can't hover over it, but you can see a tiny little bit right there. So some people think it's even too strong. But a majority are saying that's probably in a good spot. And honestly, it feels like this is in a good spot. Now, this line, haven't tested, is going to always be probably the top line, because again, a lot of people are going to get on, play their, the character that they want to play, the 5 characters, whatever it is they want to play, and not test Poison Javelin and stuff like that. So I expect that to be the highest line on everything, and that's fine. Inner Sight and Slow Missile, it seems like people are actually cool with, and Slow Missile's actually crept into this as well. But both of those seem to be in the feels good, maybe a little bit underpowered on Inner Sight. Dodge and Avoid. It seems like a lot of people really like the change. Probably some PvPers are angry with how good it is or something. I don't know. No, I mean, it's very nice. Dodge and Avoid are super good skills. So now that they're actually fixed, I think they could almost be like an overpowered thing. But I think feels good is a solid spot. Freezing Arrow, Magic Arrow, Exploding Arrow, all of these seem to be in the feels good range to slightly underpowered, somewhere in between those, but still a majority think it feels good. And I agree. I think they actually feel really nice. I haven't tested Magic Arrow actually, so I'm not exactly sure on that one. Immolation Arrow in the slightly underpowered, I would agree with this. I just feel like the extra 1 second it takes for the cast delay on it makes it really tough because you can't just like shoot it off. You know, it's like, pew, pew, you know, it's like it does decent, but it's just, it still has a little struggle. Fist of Fire, Claws of Thunder, Blades of Ice, Tiger Strike. It looks like all feeling the exact same right there. I would say the only one, maybe Blades of Ice, I'd put like a little bit lower just because the damage doesn't quite scale as well. But Fist of Fire, Claws of Thunder, Tiger Strike did feel decent. Cobra Strike, Phoenix Strike, Dragon Talon. I mean, people seem to really be liking the claws. I think this is a really good sign for all of that. The only one I would say is, Dragon Talon, I feel, is maybe a little weaker just because now it doesn't always hit. But it wasn't supposed to. I think that was a bug that was in D2R. And now they fixed it. So now it's not quite as good because of the bug maybe being fixed. Dragon Tail, Dragon Flight. I mean, everybody seems to be stoked on those. Lightning Sentry still feels very good. It's actually a little bit weaker now because you aren't going to have that Death Sentry. So when you're like leveling up, Lightning Sentry is actually going to be a little weaker since you don't get that synergy, but you still want to put points into Death Sentry. Wake of Fire, just in the feels good range, maybe in the slightly underpowered. I think this is an improvement. It used to only really be good at very low level, and then, you know, halfway through Nightmare it was complete garbage. And now it feels like it has a little bit more use later on. So I can agree with that. Wake of Inferno. I don't know if I've actually tested Wake of Inferno, so I don't think I can give an opinion on it. Feels like slightly underpowered is where it's resting. For our blades, Blade Sentinel, Fury, both are in between slightly underpowered and feels good. I think this is probably where it goes. I feel like it felt nice. It felt like I could really make a cool build with it later on. Playing through when I don't have perfect gear, all of this stuff, probably just okay. Still going to have to definitely focus on attack rating. And I would honestly say attack rating is probably going to be one of the big pieces. I almost wish Blade Fury had a plus attack rating boost to it. I think that would actually be super nice. Because this kind of comes into the same issue that you have with martial arts when martial arts had issues before, which was the damage. It was so hard to hit, right? And so when they added all of those plus attack rating boosters to martial arts, it really helped them. I think it really improved it. It really made it better. I think Blade Fury is also in that same vein. Without that attack rating boost, it's just flat, completely flat. It has no boost there whatsoever. So you're going to have to run Angelics. You're going to have to run attack rating charms or whatever stuff to help it. And I think that's kind of a tough thing for the Assassin. I think it makes it a little bit worse. So, yeah, maybe even something like add attack rating % to claw mastery or whatever it is. I mean, it just feels like there needs to be some way, and that would help that out. Blade Shield, I would almost go into slightly overpowered. Blade Shield felt like it was really strong. And I wasn't even like maxing going crazy with it. I was just using some generic gear. Warcry still feels slightly underpowered or very underpowered for some people. I think this is true. They gave a 30% damage boost to it. It like kind of helped it, but I think the skill overall is still just decent. But at the same time, is it meant to be a skill that really like, yeah, in speedruns we're going to sing and shout and do all of that stuff. But, you know, it's kind of supposed to be a skill that you like use to stun some mobs and then you can like hit them, right? Like in more of that like general idea. But the Singer Barb does exist, and I don't know. It feels probably in there. Grim Ward seemed kind of buggy, and it feels like a lot of people are unsure of where it goes as well. Throwing Mastery, I think this shows people's just sadness with the throw barb overall, which I agree. Like, I liked the idea of adding the pierce, but it just didn't do enough. And I think quantity is still the issue. Oh my God, how do I close it so people can stop How do you close a survey? Preview? No. I'm not accepting responses. People getting their responses in there. Okay. Let's go back and keep going. Leap. A lot of people like the new leap. Leap attack. A little bit worse. And I agree. The new leap attack feels like it could use a little something something. I'm not much of a like splash damage person personally. I know some people are really into like bringing splash damage into the game or something. I don't know if I'm all about that. But I do feel like maybe when the barbarian lands on a leap attack, there should be a little like, you know, oomph or something, right? Maybe like a little splash. I don't know if it's a splash damage, but something, a crater, you know, something that has a pulse out, maybe like a landing shockwave or something. I mean, Leap already has a knockback, but maybe this one could have some damage, and it takes from your like Warcry damage, and I don't know. I don't have a full idea on it, but that would actually be cool. What if it took your full Warcry, like if Warcry was a synergy, and when you did a leap attack and landed, it did a Warcry like pulse out that like stunned and hurt or something. I don't know. That seems like a crazy idea. Don't listen to that idea. I'm just saying leap attack feels like it could have something like that, and then you could really look into maybe like making a leap attack build. You know, I think that would be interesting. Double throw. I think this goes into the same vein. And I'm not here to really try and offer solutions for every single thing. I'm just going to throw out a couple ideas. I would love the idea of there being a replenish quantity on double throw, or a chance to not use a quantity. I think one of those two would be really interesting just to help it out. Because again, one of the main issues with the throw barb, one, the damage kind of is a little lackluster sometimes unless you really stack it up. Two, the quantity is such an issue. You know, you have a lot of throwing weapons that'll be like 80 weapons or something, and you just go and then you're out, and you go to town and repair, and then you come out and you do it again. And it's like, this is the only place I really feel like quantity is a big issue. I don't feel like it's a big issue with bows or anything like that. When you're running around, you can always just pick up arrows and bolts if you're, you know, cognizant of it. You know, so it's like that could be an idea. And then you also have, you know, just the ideas of, you know, even with like a Javelin or something, a lot of times you can get like higher quantity, or you're just not throwing as much, right? Because it's more about like you throw in the elemental, the poison damage hits and it lands and spreads. But the barb is all about like hit. And when he's throwing, you just throw so much. So it's like increasing quantities could be nice. Or, like I say, having a chance to not use a quantity when throwing. Or it gives, you know, the ability to replenish quantity on your double throw or whatever it is, so that by the end game, you know, unless you're throwing all the time, you would rarely run out of weapon, you know, something like that. I don't know. Those are just some ideas. Molten Boulder, people seem pretty good with. Fissure, Volcano. All this seems pretty in line with what I'd say, though I would not say Fissure feels very underpowered at all. I think Fissure definitely goes towards the higher end, but being able to use all of these together, I think is solid. Armageddon, I'm surprised how many people put it in feels good to slightly underpowered. I think Armageddon still feels like complete trash. It just doesn't hit enough. It's just so slow. And the biggest issue with Armageddon is it's behind you, right? So when you're running, all of the Armageddon is hitting everywhere behind you, but you like kill everything in front of you by the time the Armageddon catches up and actually starts hitting. So I just feel like it just doesn't quite work together. Arctic Blast, actually, I don't think it's very underpowered, because I don't think this is supposed to be some like end game thing. I feel like it's actually not bad. You can actually go and like kill mobs in hell with Arctic Blast now, which is insane. if you really wanted to make it like a high DPS, shot, I suppose you could, and then it could be fun. I'd love to test a full Arctic Blast build where we really try and power it up. But I don't know. I don't know if they're aiming for it to be something that actually goes and like you can kill Diablo with like standing there, or if you just want to, use it. It's still kind of like in the meme skill to me, I guess. But again, maybe you guys are like, I'm trying to get this to be an actual usable skill that you could put on your left click or something. And hey, I mean, if that's the case, then yeah, maybe I'd say slightly underpowered still, but it can kill. So, Twister, slightly empowered, feels good. I agree. Werewolf / bear shapeshifting forms. Yeah, I mean, they just kind of destroyed this, and I think everybody feels the same way about it. Like I said, I already had a whole discussion on this. I like the idea of making it less confusing. I don't like the idea of 7-11 being the fastest frames and stuff, right? Like the shapeshift forms. I think the solution is just have that same thing, but then give shapeshift forms just an innate IAS boost. Both Werebear and Wolf both get the exact same starting base boost IAS, and then you can also, increase it from the Wolf form from, just putting points in there like it normally is and stuff. But I think that's probably the best way to go about it because, yeah, it just doesn't feel good. It just like ruins things. And they already were decent, like where they were, you could like do a lot of stuff with kind of that speed. And yeah, without that speed, they're just, and they had like unique weapons and stuff too. I don't know. Rabies, Fury, Maul, Fireclaw. I think all of this comes from the exact same thing from the shapeshift. I think that really hurts a lot of it. Also, I would say Fireclaws has a slight weirdness in its synergies because they don't synergize super well, and you want to be able to synergize so you can use Phoenix and get that Firestorm. But now you don't get that. So like, let me show you guys. So Phoenix, this is a style. Phoenix has a 40% chance to cast level 22 Firestorm on striking, right? So one thing you can kind of do with a bear using Fireclaw, let me go to Diablo 2 and let's go to Druid, Fire Druid. So one thing that you could do is you have Firestorm, which gets the boost from Molten Boulder and Fissure. So you would jam your points into Molten Boulder and Fissure to help your Fireclaw out. And so then you would also get this additional boost onto your Fireclaw and then to your Phoenix Firestorm. But now they removed two of those. It's just like Firestorm and Molten Boulder, I think. So only Molten Boulder is boosting the Firestorm, and you're not getting this energy. And so then like the 20-point dump into Firestorm isn't really helping in that regard. That's kind of a very specific case, but it is one to note. But yeah, I think all of these, are mainly about the IAS that people are upset with. Oak Sage still feels good. Heart of the Wolverine still feels good, seems for most. And Spirit of the Barbs still seems like people aren't... we can zoom in. Sorry. Aren't enjoying that as much. Raven, people putting at slightly underpowered to feels good. I think Raven is still in the feels good category. Maybe if the AI was just like slightly better, it'd be really good. But I actually think the Raven's pretty solid. And when you're playing through the game and you're using Ravens, they like kind of crush. I also think the Spirit Wolves and Dire Wolves are solid. I think most people's, and this is an assumption I'm making, but I think most people's dissatisfaction here comes from the fact that you can only have one of these out. I think this is everybody saying, let the druid summon all of it. And, I have to kind of agree. I think that's still the piece of it. It's like, why do we have a summon necro who can run around with like 60 summons? And we did an 8-man summon necro game where everybody was maxed mages, max skellies, and revives. And we all summoned and filled the chaos. And it was absolutely massive, insane. I do agree with my own assumption, yes. And the game still ran fine. The stream was a little laggy, just from so many pixels and whatever. But the game ran okay. So, that was our server test to try and crash it. Didn't crash it, and I just sit there and I just still wonder, why can't the druid bring out a couple more dudes, right? I think it'd be really nice, really help him out, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it. That's my assumption. All right, let's see. Summon Grizzly still in that spot because he still is nice just overall. Vines, it seems people are still dissatisfied with Vines. I didn't fully test Vines a lot, but I kind of agree. They just don't feel still like they're quite worth an investment, And maybe it's just because I'm putting points everywhere else now. With you're jamming the points all into Raven, and so you're putting all the points up everywhere. But yeah, Ray's Skeletal Mage still feels very underpowered. I felt like they were okay. They were definitely tanky when I was playing, but they weren't like. It didn't feel like their DPS was still doing enough for me to super care, and I was running lower res to try and help them out. So, I was like, not sure. Blood Golem, people thought was very underpowered or slightly underpowered. Iron Golem, they enjoyed, and Fire Golem, I thought Fire Golem was very disappointing. I was really hoping it would be more pulse, more damage when I jammed everything I had into it all. Just didn't do a lot, unfortunately. So yeah, I agree with those Golem ratings as well. Bone Spear and Spirit seems like we have feels good, but look how many. This is definitely, I would definitely say PvP players right here. Look how many are in the overpowered and very overpowered areas. So I think that is a tough point because Bone Necros were already decent in PvP and does all this boost to damage, really like jack that up and make them even super strong and overpowered potentially. But PVM, they've always kind of struggled a little bit, right? Not struggle, but they're just not quite as good. So, I think this is I think Bone Spear and Bone Spirit are interesting skills to kind of think about with all of that. Weaken, it seems like a lot of people like the current state of Weaken, maybe slightly underpowered. Holy Fire actually has the most very overpowered and slight overpowered that we have seen of every skill. And the majority, though, technically for a single line, are in feels good. And I think this is probably in the right way. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to hate on this video already and be like, that's because you told them to vote that way or whatever. But hey, Dabrowski put out a video that said this skill is not overpowered at all. And I think a lot of this comes down to what your definition of overpowered is. Is Holy Fire, let's say the end game, is endgame Holy Fire stronger than a Javazon in like Players 8 Cows? No. The Players 8 Cows Javazon is going to be stronger and cheaper. And same idea with your like Hammerden. But the AoE and the movement and the style of play, I think, is the part that I like to focus on, which is I don't like that somebody can just walk and the whole screen dies. To me, that's why we play Path of Exile, is when we just want to walk and the whole screen dies. With the Javazon, I like herd cows together. and then I throw it to kill all of them. With the Hammered In, I have like my little area, and so I kind of move into a position and kill in that little area, and you go again. So the damage ends up being stronger, and you can have a higher clear speed at like players 8 and such. But again, this would be a character I wouldn't be running at players 8. This is a character I would run at players 1 or players 3, and I just run around and murder everything by not touching it and just moving, just charging around or teleporting around on the sorceress, and it all dies. And I just personally can't get behind that kind of aura play being strong enough. Now, is it expensive? Sure, but I'm not really caring about expense here because, again, I could go to an expensive Hammered In or an expensive Javelin, whatever, and I would also say those are kind of overpowered. But you can go to expensive builds of other things, and they still have kind of a meaning and an AoE that seems and feels more appropriate to the game, not a whole screen and beyond even. Stuff dies off of the screen with Holy Fire. So that's my opinion on it. Other people have their own opinions, though. I mean, a lot of people thought it felt good. I also think it's a little too strong early on. You can like 2-shot Andariel at level 12, and I feel like that's a little bit strong. So, that's my opinion. But again, like I say, I'm not trying to force that. I'm just sending all of this, and everybody had the chance to fill this out and send this over. And, a lot of people, it seems, to agree that it does feel slightly overpowered or very overpowered or feels good. Probably somewhere in this range overall. Right there. Holy Freeze, it seems, has overall feels good, but does have a mixture for sure. And Holy Shock actually pooling a decent amount of very and slightly overpowered as well. But again, a majority seem to be in the middle with it right there. Thorns, it seems people still feel is lackluster. I'm not sure. I feel like Thorns needs more testing, but to me, I was in hell and the mobs were still killing themselves slowly. I always think Thorns is still kind of a meme-y thing. I don't think, again, you should be able to have something so strong that you can just play a like late game Thorns build where everything just dies touching you. As fun as it does sound, I feel like making it a slower thing is kind of better overall rather than, just being like super strong, right? And once again, not everything needs to be super late game. This is a level 6 skill. I think it works great at level 6 and all of that. And then, kind of fades into lesser. But most people, it seems, think very underpowered to slightly underpowered. Sanctuary seems to be in that similar ground of feels good with a little bit under. Conversion seems like a lot of people think it's good to slightly under as well. Holy Bolt, same thing. Fist of Heavens, surprisingly, has a lot of slightly underpowered votes as well. So probably somewhere in there. Again, I think maybe in PvP, this is where it really might be strong. And that might be where you're seeing these votes. Potentially. Frost Nova, feeling good right there. And I agree. I think I don't want them to buff that anymore personally. I think it's totally fine where it is, but there's definitely some slightly undered to vary. Shiver Armor, Chilling Armor, it seems like people leaning towards feels good with a little bit of the unders as well. Nova, seems like a lot of people like where Nova is at. I agree with that. And Thunderstorm, slightly underpowered. I also agree with that. Probably just needs to hit more, or I don't know. It's still something where it's like I don't know if I want to fully invest into it. Does it really matter? Does it really do something? Inferno, similar to Arctic Blast. Maybe when it pulses. Oh, that'd be cool. What if when Thunderstorm hit, it did a Nova? Something like that. Maybe that'd be too strong for PvP, though. Maybe the Nova only damages everything around the target that it hits. So that way the Nova doesn't... or a small Nova. Yeah. Something like that. That'd be cool. It just feels like it needs a little more. Blaze. A lot of people like where Blaze is. I agree. I think Blaze could be really fun. I almost wish Blaze was on a non-sorceress character, personally. And then Firewall. It seems like in the feels good to slightly underpowered. I figured more people would be upset after that nerf. But it seems like a lot of people still think it looks good. All right, now let's look at rune words. We'll look at the strength of rune words. So Plague, this is going to be slightly underpowered. I imagine, oh, what happened here? We don't know which one that one is. That might be Obsession. Oh, it's Unbending Will. So yeah, Plague, slightly underpowered. For me, it's just that it's only in swords. So yeah, but it seems to be right in between those. Pattern. Seems like most people feel good with Pattern. Maybe slightly underpowered. Right there. And low res on Struck is sad. Yeah, maybe. Unbending Will. Seems like a lot of people like where Unbending Will is at. With some people thinking it's slightly underpowered. Wisdom. Seems to be feeling good to slightly underpowered. Obsession. Also very similar. And Flickering Flame. Seems to be the most feels good. With this is kind of the first one that really creeps into the slightly overpowered, and that's probably because it really, I mean, it's a best in slot Fire Helm for sure, and kind of knocks out like Ravenlore and things like that maybe. And then Mist, it seems also in the feels good to slightly underpowered, right there. So a lot of people tried out the new rune words, but the cost. Let's see. Plague, it seems like people think too expensive. Feels good to slightly too expensive is the most kind of common and right there. Pattern, everybody seems pretty good with Pattern. Unbending Will, people seem pretty good with Unbending Will. Wisdom, people think is good to slightly too expensive. I've already made my case on this. I think the pole is too expensive. I think giving it like a co-rune or a lum rune or something would be way better in that slot. But whatever. Obsession, people think is slightly too expensive. Same sort of idea right there. Zodist, Lemlum, Io, Nef. I think that Zod rune people are just like, that's so pricey. But again, it's like, you know, Zod's kind of needed a rune word, so, you know, I understand why they did it. But I can understand why people also are like, that's so expensive, I'll never find a Zod rune. And I can also understand why they think that, because that is a tough drop. Flickering Flame, people think is pretty good, maybe slightly too expensive. And Mist, pretty good, slightly too expensive. You know, I think just you have a lot of people that are going to be like, high runes are just very hard to find in this game. I think that's just a true statement. How do you feel about the new Haragic Cube recipe change? Good or indifferent? Seem to dominate it all. This is to upgrade set items. How do you feel about the new mercenary changes? Act 1 Cold Mercenary seems to be in the slightly underpowered to feels good category. Act 1 Fire Mercenary, slightly underpowered to feels good, but very underpowered a bit more. And I agree. I think the Act 1 Cold Mercenary is definitely a better one that I'm going to use like more often, you know? So I completely agree with that. Act 3 Fire Mercenary, Cold Mercenary, and Light Mercenary, all kind of in the same bucket, all of them feeling underpowered, with Cold being the most by everybody. And I can kind of agree. I feel like part of it's the AI. Part of it is just how weak they are and how quick they die. I think both of those are just such big issues. It's like, I'd love to have this Act 3 Light Mercenary with the static, but they die so fast. That was my issue as well. Or that was my personal issue. And Act 5 Mercenary, it seems, is slightly underpowered as its voting spot. So the Mercenaries improved, but it still seems most people think they are more underpowered, and Act 2 is still probably the best, and I would agree with that. How do you feel about the set bonus changes? There is an indifferent. That is what the pink is. And then this is a haven't looked or tested. Arcanas, Arctic, Volcathos, Cathin, Siverbs. They all kind of have the same idea of being probably slightly underpowered or a little more. Cow Kings, I think, is definitely feeling decent with it. Infernal, Irathas, I think, actually is in the feels good category for me as well. Milabrega is a little low. Nausea with that added magic find, I think, has crept up more into the feels good range, and I agree with that. Sazabis and Vidalas still probably feeling a little weak, and I think that's true as well. It's definitely like, am I ever going to go and save Vidalas to give them to a character? Probably not still, right? How do you feel about the new level 85 areas? Good is 64% and not enough is 30.7%. With only 42 respondents thinking there's too many. I think that's pretty true. I feel pretty good on it. I think there's a lot to go explore, and that'll be a lot of fun. How do you feel about hit recovery having diminishing returns in PvP? Indifferent is 48%. Excellent, 14. Good, 13. Fair, 15. Poor, 4. And very poor, 4.5. I think it's interesting to note how many people are fair or below on the change. I think part of this is how it interacts. I believe there's actually like some poor interactions with it, where things like increasing your hit recovery can actually be worse in certain PvP combat situations. So like if I'm fighting a certain character and they put me into hit recovery, and then I like the next time they hit me, I don't go in hit recovery. But if I get more hit recovery, then the next time they hit me, I actually do go into hit recovery. So it's not, I don't think it's been implemented correctly. And that's why I think that's kind of an issue. But the idea I still like. I just think the implementation has to be adjusted, because I should never be punished for putting more hit recovery on my character. Okay. What changes would you like to see for the Druid? We have 2,000 responses, so we'll probably not go through all of them, but we can look at basics. All summons, buff shapeshifting, fix IAS, more fire elemental. Summons, summon a lot, revert attack speed, summon, strong werebear skills, reduce volcano cast delay. It is at 4 seconds right now. That is a little high. Multiple summons, shapeshift fixed, attack speed, IS, revert IS. Armageddon could be narrowed to make the meteors closer, but not as wide. That's interesting. Summoner build, viable bear form, not reliant on fire. Invulnerable vines, Armageddon hitting more, multi-summons. Fix the IIS stuff. It seems to be pretty repeating, right? What changes would you like to see for Barbarian? Whirlwind buff, buff Whirlwind. Splash, Whirlwind buff, more AoE, better double throw, Whirlwind buff. Improve Whirlwind, less 1-point wonders. He does have a lot of 1-point wonders. Bonus to Whirlwind, throw barb. Warcry plus damage minus mana cost. Honestly, the mana cost on Warcry is very, very painful. More damage and attack rating. Whirlwind. Leap attack, splash damage. Yeah, I think there's definitely something cool that could be brought with that. Bring back old Whirlwind. Unlimited ammo, Whirlwind. Bigger pec muscles. Needs to have like Pez radar pecs. Whirlwind, remove Whirlwind negative damage, yeah. Less AR reliant Whirlwind. Okay, yeah. I mean, there's once again, similar idea of that stuff right there. Changes for the Sorceress. No. Buff Frozen Orb. Nerf Teleport. No. Fix Mana Burn bug. I agree with that. Reduce cooldown on Frozen Orb. No. Frozen Orb needs a buff. T-Storm hitting more often or having some hit-on effect. Hey, that's what I was thinking. Telly nerfed a bit. Frost Nova do more damage. Nerf Teleport just to watch the world burn. More damage for Frozen Orb, or slightly more damage, or change Firebolt to Fireball on Hydra. Bro, Hydras would be crazy with that. Maybe like if one of them could shoot a Fireball and the other two shot Firebolts, that would be interesting. Seems to be pretty similar in those regards. Those skills. What would you like to see for Amazon? Multi-shot buff. Faster Impale attack speed. Yes, please. Buff multi. Buff multi. Make her viable again. Casting delay reduced on Immolation Arrow to 0.6. I think that would be better as well. I agree. Better spears on skill. Multi-shot damage reduction removed. More damage for bow skills. Increase Impale attack speed. More damage. More improvement. Ooh, combine both attack rating and pierce passives and add a run walk passive. She's got no bonus movement. I think that's actually interesting because it does feel like an Amazon should have a movement skill in some capacity, right? Some way to move faster. I think that's actually very interesting. I doubt they would change it that much, but physical bow skills, more damage percent. Give me back my multi-shot. All bow elemental skills are underwhelming late game. I actually think they're not terrible personally, but whatever. Buff to multi-shot. Bring FCR in line with other classes. She does have horrible FCR frames. More viable in hell. Physical bows on multi-shot. MF viable. Yeah. Give Impale more it just needs more speed. Changes for Assassin. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Looking good. Nothing, 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 nothing. A way to break fire immunities. Boost melee and fire traps. Blade shield a bit buffed. Fire traps and other blade traps still weak. Martial arts needs a damage boost again. Way too gear dependent. More ways to get attack rating for Blade Fury and Blade Sentry. 100% agree with that. Add pieces to Blade Sin. Less confusing to play. Wake of Fire could be slightly buffed. Huge buff to fire traps. Slight buff to blades. More buffs to fire traps to make it more viable in late difficulties. Buff lightning sentry endgame damage. Isn't it the same as it was before? Maybe even slightly more. New assassins seem to be a good spot. A whole paragraph. Allow for burst of speed and fade at the same time. I think that would make her way too strong personally. Allow fade and burst speed. A lot of people like that. Okay. Seems like a lot of ideas, honestly, there. What changes would we like to see for the Paladin? Paladin's fine. Nerf Hammerden. Nerfs. Nerf everything. Nerf hammers. Nerf auras. Nerf Oridin. Nerf aura Oridin. Okay, we'll try and go to more. Oh God. All right. Well, that's why. Well, yeah. The devs are reading all of these, so I'm not going to read all of them. Nerf Holy Fire. Nerf Hammers. Just return FOH's cooldown. Nerf guns, man. Changes for Necromancer, better summons, better golems, more bone magic damage. Replace mages with archers. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. Make mages not suck. Skelly mages still a bit weak. Mages still suck. Buff spear and spirit for endgame damage. Man, PvP would lose their mind if they did more of that. Skeleton mages buffs. A way to generate skeletons without killing mobs. I always thought that could be interesting. Summons to receive a small bonus. Seems like a lot of people are focusing on summons for sure. And changes for mercenaries. Auras, more auras, and auras. Make all mercenaries as useful as Act 2. And have an aura. Better stat gains per level. Every merc shall have an aura. More item slots. Better Warcry for Act 5. Battle orders or shout for Act 5 mercenary. And Battle Cry is nice. They could like add battle orders or something. That'd be interesting. But then he would overwrite people's battle orders and they'd get pissy. So that's probably a bad idea. You don't want to do that. More differences between Mercs aside from weapons and skills. Yeah, more items there. Buff Act 5, maybe give him Taunt. Act 2 is still the best by far. Yeah, I mean, I think there's... I mean, it's, you know, all need more buffs, not yet competing with Infinity/Auras. It's probably decently true for a lot of cases. Have you found anything broken that needs to be fixed? Orden, Holy Fire, Holy Fire, Holy Fire, Mana Burn, Orden, Attack Rating Formula, Shapeshift Attack Speed, Holy Fire, Enigma, Loading Times. Looks like people didn't really use this for the spots they were supposed to. But maybe there's some things in there. That was the bug report. Maybe I should have said bug report here. In what way would you improve / change Diablo 2 Resurrected while trying to stay true to the game? Loot filter, Act 6, currency tab, loot filter, more content. Act 6, loot filter, improvement to unique weapons so they can bridge characters better to in-game farming. Tab for consumables, stackable rooms and gens in inventory. Need more stash tabs. Nerf grief. Players 8 solo mode only on Battle.net. In-game content, allow solo online players to change player difficulty. Improved lobby system. I agree with that. Stackable runes. Loot filter support. A lot of people want loot filters. Bonus to act playthrough completion versus boss running, rerunning. They know that you get quest drops when you kill bosses, right? Loot filter, more stash tabs. Add players command online mode. Yeah, seems like we're getting similar stuff. Would you be interested in a currency tab or stacking? Yes, 90%. Indifferent, 5.8%. No, 4.4%. And lastly, did Pez Radar look better with a mustache? 60% indifferent. 26% yes. Only 14.6% no. Wow. Wow, Pez, you know what to do. Time to start growing, buddy. You and me, right? Hey, twins. We look the same, right? You're ugly? Just put the mustache back on. That's what they say. So, that is the survey. 3,143 responses. I will open it up since there'll probably be more people who are going to put some responses. And we want to get more of that feedback into the devs. We've got the majority of the responses in now. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope that this was helpful, something that was interesting to you to see. I'm sure some of you are going to say, oh, but they didn't vote like I voted. And, you know, that happens. You know, such is the way it is. This is just kind of, you know, the summation of 3,000 plus people. This was posted on Wowhead, on Reddit, Diablo, and then also, you know, I posted a video on my YouTube as well, and talked about it in my Discord. So, you know, it's got a variety of people from a variety of sources and places. And I think overall, you know, we have a decent amount of hours played as well from everybody there. So big takeaways. A lot of stuff I think feels pretty solid. There's still a lot of buffing, it feels like, that could be done to, you know, some of these skills like Impale and stuff, just to kind of bring them into a better place. But it seems like a lot of stuff is still in that like slightly underpowered to feels good area, which I think is not a bad place for a lot of skills to be. It makes it usable. It makes it where you can have a use case for it, but not like completely dead in the water, right? So some skills do feel that way, but things like maybe like Plague Javelin and stuff, you know, maybe it's not terrible. And then Rune Words, it feels, you know, some of them maybe a little bit underpowered, but some of them decent. Expense-wise, maybe a little pricey, but again, not terrible. A lot of people like a lot of the stuff. Mercenaries could probably still bring up a little bit more. Sets could probably still be a little better. They still feel pretty weak. People really like all the new areas. PvP, we talked about the FHR. And then, the character specifics, I think, have a lot of good stuff in them. Things like the IES, things like Fire, not quite being where they want it to be. Barbarian, throw barb, all of that stuff. Sorceress, everybody's fine, but Frozen Orb maybe could use a little buff. Amazon, maybe a little bit more with physical arrows. Assassin, it seemed like people want a little more for buff for blades and a little bit more for fire trap scaling at the end. Paladin, just nerf it to the ground. And just kidding. And Necromancer, it seemed like maybe a little bit more with mages or summons a little bit more. And then Mercenaries, again, like we talked about before, just kind of bringing those up. So, yeah. And then Currency and Loot Filter seem to be two very desired things. And Lobby Fix, I'm always going to post my own personal desire for an improved lobby. That's just going to be my piece there. So, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this. Don't forget to like and subscribe, YouTube. Peace, everybody.